Right, welcome back. It's still the UK lockdown and it's still the nice summer's weather considering it's only 9 o'clock on a morning. But this is my latest acquisition. This is a Yamaha Kodiak 400. This is probably, well, in my opinion, it's the best bike ever produced. These are the precursors of the Grizzly 450. The Grizzly was introduced in about 03, and these are the top of the line 450 bikes prior to that. So they came with a low range. They continued making the Kodiak after 03, but they dropped the low range and it came sort of a budget version of the Grizzly. These features the same engine as the Grizzly. The only difference is this is a 401cc unit, whereas the Grizzly 450s is a 421cc. This particular bike's in pretty good condition. It's been pretty well looked after, to be fair, considering the age of it. I don't think it's done a massive amount of work. So we look at these tyres. Yes, they are knackered, but I know for a fact these Dunlops are the original tyres, and that's proven by the date code that's on the other one. So looking here, we've got week 14 of 2001, so they are definitely the original tyres. They really could do with changing because obviously they are quite dry rotted, which is sort of inevitable as they're almost 20 years old. These bikes really don't look 20 years old as well, so they are quite good sellers because they look 5 rather than 20. I can tell it's been reasonably well maintained because normally when I get one of these there's no rear axle oil in them. That's primarily because this boot back here tends to rip. They rip very easily. There goes that little cockle. But they rip very easily, which means the rear main seal often goes because they get a load of crud in them. The reason they rip is partly because they're exposed to the sun and it's a big rubber boot, but also because these models have a plastic under tray guard fitted. People often remove them guards when they're changing the oil and they don't put them back on. So as a result, brash gets through that guard and goes over the frame and hits that rubber boot. So yeah, that's not so good. These tyres are much better. They've still got the original marking on them there. See if we can see a date code. Yeah, so week 29 of 15, so these tyres are much newer. As I said, there's very little wrong with this bike. The only things that I've found so far is it's got a hubcap missing there. Presumably they've done a wheel bearing on it because the ball joints aren't new on this side. That's no problem, I've got one of those. The lower ball joint is gone on this side. That one down there, again, not an issue. Someone's obviously replaced the CV axle rubbers in the past. CV boots, they've only used cable tyres, so I'll probably put some proper clamps on those. Not too much surface rust considering the age. I'll probably spray it up, make it a little bit better. I've had this all jacked up, none of these bushings are gone. They're all in fairly good condition, they're not dry rotted. Previous owners had all these racks powder coated, which saves me a job because I always do that. The only major issue it really had when it first came was it wouldn't rev past about halfway, so I couldn't get it above 15 miles an hour. That was only a carburetor issue, which I've solved. That'll be in another video. It's absolutely fine now. You can see, sorry I just got interrupted there. You can see that the four-wheel drive on command stickers are missing. I have found a reproduction of this for the Grizzly, but it's got a diff lock mark on it, and this one doesn't have diff lock. They didn't introduce diff lock on any bikes till about 04. Which is not a problem. I can't decide whether to buy them stickers and modify them or just leave as it is. This bike features the manual dials. Literally everything works on this. All the indicator lights, the speedo, the horn, although it is slightly broken off. All the lights, switchable 2 and 4, works fine. It's quite unusual. Even this four-wheel drive indicator light works. That's very rare. They work on a little push button switch inside the diff, and that always breaks. Almost every one of these I've had has had that switch broken. But, so literally everything on this one is in good working order. Again, another thing that's uncommon to be working, but this one does, is the rear brake. The reason these often stop working is if we look down here, might have to remove this plastic side cover for you to see the mechanism. Come on. So you can see the mechanism for that brake down there. It's quite a complex little mechanism. It's a hydraulic rear brake, but it works on a cable actual lever. If I move that cable now, you can see that lever moving. And obviously they're very low to the ground. They tend to get packed with mud. You can see that's the hydraulic cylinder for the rear caliper. And it shares with the foot brake. So you've got a foot brake serving that rear secondary cylinder, as well as the handbrake. So yeah, they just tend to rust up. Quite clean engine block, not too much mud or oil on it, which is quite good. It's definitely been serviced before I got it. The plug is definitely new, the oil is clean and fresh, which is very unusual. Whoever did change the oil did it with a genuine filter, which is always a good sign. If we can pull this out. Yeah. I don't know if you can see that, but it is a Yamaha genuine filter. I had all the air box out yesterday on it. I don't know if I mentioned, but when I saw it in the carb, I did make a video on it, so that'll be another video. Previous owner said he replaced the starter clutch. I think that's accurate, because you can see all this silicone around the starter clutch casing. I don't think whoever did the work on this did a terrible job. It was claimed to be done by a professional agricultural engineer, and looking at the quality, I wouldn't be too surprised if it was. I'm just going to pause the video briefly while I put these panels back on. Okay, so that's all back together. So why do I think these are the best bikes that are produced? Well, a number of reasons really, most of which I demonstrated in the 450 video. If you haven't seen that, go and have a little watch. They are incredibly durable. I have seen some of these that have been through absolute hell and they still run. The belts that drive the CVT literally never break, never have a problem with the primary and secondary clutches. The only thing that we can have a bit of a problem with the clutch system on the drive system on these is the wet clutch. If they get really hammered, the wet clutch can burn off its friction material. So how these CVTs work is you've got a wet clutch inside the engine which works as centrifugal force. It's got clutch pads on it that are held in by springs, so when you rev the engine in, it spins round, then that clutch material pushes up against a drum which provides the drive, so that's why you can have the rev and go on these. It's bathed in oils, it's a wet clutch, so if people don't use proper wet clutch certified oil, that clutch starts to spin if it's hammered on and burns up the material. So that's about £300 or £400 to replace, and it's a reasonably in-depth job. The way you can test for that is just hold your brake and give it some throttle in high range. If the engine revs up but you're not going anywhere, your wet clutch is spinning. So that's the only thing to really watch out for on these. I did mention before about the boot that covers the rear main seal. Not a massive issue, just a few hours work. Why else? They're quick. They are properly quick for a bike of this age and mileage. They can get up to about 50 miles an hour. They're dead easy to drive, high-low range, reverse, rev and go. Easy switchable four-wheel drive so you don't burn up your tyres. I mean, these tyres have lasted 20 years. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but they look like a new bike. They were still making this shape of Grizzly, albeit a different front end. It's about 2014. So you get a lot of bike for your money, really. And I might just start it up so you can hear it go. They don't tend to suffer with top end damage at all. There it goes. Runs lovely and smooth, no smoke. So yeah, even the fuel gauge works on this one. That's another common issue for the fuel gauges to go. They work on a little float, and there's a little metal rod that connects to the lever, and they always snap. So it's clearly been quite a looked after bike. So yeah, subscribe for more. I'll be doing plenty of how-tos on these bikes, plenty of more reviews, etc. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.